Hey everyone, it's Pixelademanagement here and welcome back to the channel. We have a lot to talk about here today. I have some news for you guys, of course, with Train Sim World 4 with both Game Pass and a brand new Loco DLC that was announced and revealed earlier today. So without further ado, let's jump straight on into things. Game Pass for Xbox. Train Sim World 4 is going to be leaving it tomorrow, Wednesday, July 31st. So today is the last full day to enjoy Train Sim World 4 on Game Pass. There is some potential good news to this and bad news. The good news being that with Train Sim World 4 leaving is that it's likely Train Sim World 5 is to be announced next month at Dovetail Direct. Right now, it's just rumors and speculation, though Dovetail Games did confirm that there were leaks and that they were real. So all of that content that I talked about in my last video, whether some of that is real or some of that is fake, is still up in the air, but I'm thinking that it's likely coming. That's the good news. Now, the bad news is if you're playing Train Sim World 4 on Xbox Game Pass and you've spent, hundreds of dollars on DLC for it, you are going to be without a game. There is no way for you to play and enjoy your DLC if you don't actually own Train Sim World 4, at the minimum, the standard edition. So they made a post, Dovetail Games Alex writes, Microsoft has announced that Train Sim World 4 standard edition is leaving Xbox Game Pass on Wednesday, July 31st. If you wish to continue playing Train Sim World 4 and any add-ons you may have purchased, you'll need to own the game on the same platform and account as your existing purchases. So let's say you don't want to purchase Train Sim World 4, but you want to continue playing with your DLC, you're gonna have to wait until Train Sim World 5 is announced and of course added onto Game Pass, if it is, in order to play your existing DLC currently. But you're going to have to wait either a month or more. I'm thinking it's likely going to be more, as if it is announced, that announcement is coming 1 month from now, so it'll probably be some time until it actually releases. But of course, Dovetail isn't going to miss the opportunity to tell you guys about Game Pass Ultimate with savings of up to 20% on Train Sim World 4 bundles if you do decide to purchase it. The best value being for Train Sim World 4 Deluxe Edition, which includes 4 root add-ons and 2 Loco add-ons. Personally, if you want my advice, I think you should just wait for the likely announcement of Train Sim World 5, crossing our fingers that it gets added on Game Pass right away when it releases, so you not only can continue playing the DLC you've purchased for Train Sim World 4, but you will also get a handful of new routes with that game. If you don't want to wait, or if you can't wait, or if you just don't want to bet on it actually being Train Sim World 5, which we still aren't 100% on, then purchasing Train Sim World 4 is going to be an option. So if you play on Game Pass, you have some decisions to make. Now moving on to the brand new announcement for the DBBR101, they label this as an expert locomotive, so they're taking things to the next level. They're promising the ultimate challenge and step into a new level of simulation with an unparalleled, in-depth recreation of the DBBR 101 locomotive coming August 8th, courtesy of TSG. Regular players of German Train Sim World content may already be familiar with the DBBR 101 locomotive, which released as an add-on in 2021 for the Hauptstrecke Rhein-Ruhr and has been layered/substituted into many German route add-ons since then. These large, powerful electric locomotives arrived on the German network in the late 1990s to replace older express passenger locomotives like the PBBR103. Its unique design is well known across the country, hauling intercity services between many of Germany's major cities and destinations. For this release, TSG team has dialed up realism and accuracy to the maximum, along with the challenge of operating this locomotive in very fine detail. The cab comes in two variants, MFD and MFA, and features fully operational interactive screens to control and alter a myriad of options and settings for different aspects of operation. All of the screens and sub-screens display information as they would in reality. So additional tasks that the player can undertake go well beyond those available in a standard train sim world locomotive. These include an extensive fault simulation with fault clearing required in order to keep the train moving, realistic door operation with TB0 and SSTF door control systems, real train data input, PZB, LZB data entry, GSMR simulation down to individual cell towers, and a machine room modeled which players can enter. I'm pretty sure we didn't have that in the current version of this in the game. So there's a lot more to this locomotive now, and honestly just reading about how much more detailed it is with more simulation aspects, including the fault simulation and PZB and LZB data entry, I can already assume that it's probably going to be on the steeper side in terms of price. And there is going to be a preview stream for this going up tomorrow on the official Train Sim World YouTube and Twitch. I don't want to say now if it's worth it. I definitely want to see this thing in action and see how it works. For me, bugs, glitches are a big factor in that, so if there are any, we're likely going to see them tomorrow. Not trying to be a negative Nancy, but Dovetail doesn't have the best track record with that, so I'm not going to hold my breath yet. The machine room includes all breakers and valves that players can interact with and is important for both startup procedures and fault finding, so you may find yourself spending quite a bit of time here preparing and maintaining the locomotive in operation. The fault finding aspect to this release is unique among Train Sim World content. Quite often, faults are included in pre-prepared scenarios where players are required to act around them using a set of instructions in-game. A series of scenarios and tutorials will be able to guide the player through the fault finding process, which includes having to read and use the interactive fault finding screens that correctly display the faulty component. This can range from traction motors failing to PZB failures or even a cascade of failures if certain systems start to blow out others. I actually really like that they're taking the simulation to this level, and honestly this kind of rolls into my own personal Train Sim World 5 speculation wish list. I'm really hoping that they make random events a part of the timetable as a standard feature going forward. I love scenarios, don't get me wrong. I love the fact that we have to deal with some of these things and challenges happening where there are faults and there are issues to solve. But I hate that there's really no replay value in those scenarios. It's just the same thing over and over again if you want to play this scenario back multiple times. With a feature like random events, which was on a survey at some point, so I'm hoping that it's being considered, these in timetable mode would allow for random occurrences on any given service. That could be random delays with traffic, random faults that occur in your locomotive, maybe possibly signal malfunctions. I want to see more of that so there's more replay value in the game. Maybe there could even be an option in the settings menu where you set the % chance of certain issues occurring, or if you want that feature turned off, then you can do so. Give us that freedom. Part of me wants to think that them introducing a more detailed locomotive with fault simulation could potentially be a hint that maybe random events a part of the timetable are actually going to become a thing in a future iteration of Train Sim World, but I don't want to get my hopes up. A manual will also be provided to assist players with this process, and certain elements will require reading before embarking on services. So the next part is all all about LZB and PZB input. And just looking at this first screenshot, it's truly starting to give like Flight Simulator. I love how before you have a flight, you have to set the cab up, and it seems like they're really trying to make that a focus here. You're spending more time in the cab, setting things up, getting things ready for your service, instead of just loading into one, pulling the levers, and getting moving. This is personally up my alley as far as my play style. The more that's simulated in the cab, the better. This feature requires entering max speed and brake rate values to simulate PZB and LZB on a higher level. The brake rate is calculated through the train's maximum weight and describes its braking performance in the current configuration considering current available systems. The ZDE panel then sets the PZB mode from these values. There is no switch as in the previous BR101. The result of all of these additional features and complexities is that this locomotive will be an exciting but rigorous challenge even for those who are very experienced with Train Sim World content and German locomotives currently in the game. This idea of an in quotes expert loco may be familiar to those who participated in our Train Sim World player survey earlier this year. Currently we don't have any others planned, but we're excited to hear your thoughts and feedback, so please let us know if this is something you'd like to see more of. That makes me sad reading they don't have any more of this planned, because that kind of shoots down my own personal little theory speculation about random events possibly actually being implemented in Train Sim World 5 as it was on a previous survey. With more detailed locomotives, with fault simulation and all of that, I feel like that would just go hand in hand with random delays on the actual timetable. So with no others planned like this, that doesn't leave me much hope. Also, the reference back to the survey gives me hope for some other things, like when JD was talking about how conductor mode or guard mode was one of the top voted, and now we saw potential leaks with that listed. I'm starting to think that that is likely going to be part of Train Sim World 5 if and when that is announced. So on to locomotive improvements. In addition to the work done to make the locomotive super realistic to operate, many other improvements have been made over the initial BR101 release. These include sound improvements, utilizing new sound recordings and upgrading older capture, and newly refined physics. The DB BR101 Expert comes in two liveries for this release. That's DB Red and DB IC, so it's going to be able to match the rest of the cars. For players wanting a more casual driving experience, an accessible driving mode will be available in the main menu setting, which reverts functionality to a level typical to other Train Sim World locomotives and enables players to experience the improvements to this locomotive without hitting the higher difficulty level. Good. I was worried about this, you know, just thinking generally for the whole Train Sim World player base, not everyone is going to want something harder. Some players just want to jump in, get moving, and that's okay, that's valid. Everyone has a different play style, so there is going to be a setting that lets you change this. I honestly hope that they move forward with more expert locomotives in the future, especially since they are giving us that option. They write that players that just want to experience the IC Stewer Wagon can also use this feature. And of course, the original DB BR101 Loco add-on will remain on sale, but requires the Hauptstreck Rheinrohr add-on in order to operate. So also included with this is the IC Stewer Wagon cab car. Included in this release is the much requested and eagerly awaited cab car and updated BP MMZ and AV MMZ coaches. Cab cars are commonplace on passenger train routes throughout Europe, with the earliest designs even dating back to the late 1800s. The concept was primarily used on regional or urban traffic, where top speeds were 140 kilometers an hour and quick turnaround times for trains were a necessity. It wasn't until the 1990s that cab cars were trialed for higher speed, longer distance traffic. Tested up to 14 cars and speeds up to 200 kilometers an hour, if successful, would allow for much greater flexibility of inner city service services throughout Germany. The tests were promising enough that several batches of existing but relatively new coaches were converted to have a cab retrofitted onto one end and ballast added to increase their weight. I definitely have my fair share of experience in cab cars myself within the game. I personally usually only play US routes for the most part, though I do still enjoy German content as well. One of my favorite routes, Northeast Corridor, New York to Trenton, does have a cab car experience that is inside the Metroliner cab car. So as they talk about here next, with there being a lack of engine room ambience behind it, I am very much accustomed to that. With their cab equipment reflecting the controls indicative of locomotives at the time, cab cars would allow for IC trains to dwell for less time at major terminals. The only noticeable difference from a driver's POV being the distinct lack of engine room ambience behind them. In-game, the IC cab car can be operated in as much detail as the DB-BR101, with the option for more accessible mode, which defaults the settings to a correct setup and turns off the safety systems. The throttle of the cab car is similar in style to that of the BR111 in that it has a run down, hold, run up segment and also a manual control segment. So now on to the last part of this article, all about timetable layering, substitution, scenarios, and of course pricing. Oh boy, I cannot wait to get to that point. On release, the DBBR101 Expert will have copied timetable services on Naviker Dresden and Braunstreck, Salzburg, Rosenheim route add-ons. The latter will also have 3 scenarios available to play, so we're getting some new scenarios, which is nice, but only timetable layers. I'm guessing they're just substitutes as they write copied here, only on 2 of the routes. That's it. Definitely disappointed with that. They write, of course, players will also be able to utilize the locomotive on any German route add-on in free roam mode, and neither of the above routes are a requirement to do this. So you can still purchase this Loco and not have those routes, and you'll have access to the Loco in free roam, I guess you can use on any of the other German routes you may have, but only timetable compatibility on 2 routes? Yikes. So now on to the pricing. Oh boy, it is steep. 36 euros, 30 pounds, and 40 US dollars. Wow, honestly, this should be what, 25 US dollars? I would kind of even be okay with 30 US dollars given that this is expert mode and is enhanced with more detail, but 40 US dollars is crazy. That's the price of a route, and there's no route coming with this at all. Again, I'm happy they're taking the time to make a more detailed locomotive where there's more to do inside the cab, but for this price is ridiculous. And honestly, this kind of terrifies me about prices going forward, especially prices for the potential release of Train Sim World 5. What are standard locos gonna cost? What are standard routes gonna cost? Are they gonna up the price on pretty much every form of DLC? I wouldn't even put it past them at this point. Of course, there is a preview stream tomorrow where we're going to learn more about the route. I'll probably upload a video after the stream talking about my thoughts and going into more detail on what's confirmed for the train as we see it in action, but I don't know if this one's clicking for me. Xander1986 over on the forums makes a really good point about free roam mode, writing, free roam is a complete mess and is not a good selling point. It's nothing more than place a train and run from A to B. Nothing that comes near the timetable runs, and I couldn't agree more. Though I love timetable mode, I love that it gives us that freedom, and also I do think it does add some replayability because once you play all the services in timetable mode, you kind of expect what's going to happen with each service, as it's usually either the same or very similar each time, especially if you're running these services on time. I like that free roam, a part of the timetable, does add you in with the other services, so you don't know what to expect every time you play. I'll give them that, but free roam isn't enough unless they plan to expand free roam in Train Sim World 5, which I'm really hoping they do. Give us the ability to actually set station station stops, or possibly even set station stop times. Then I might think of this a little bit better, but until then, definitely agree with this point here. I don't think it's worth that price, and I want to know what you guys think below about this new Loco, the pricing point for it, and if you plan on picking this thing up. And also going back to the announcement of Train Sim World 4 leaving Game Pass, are you planning on actually purchasing Train Sim World 4, or would you rather just wait and not play? Of course, at the risk of there being no Train Sim World 5 announcement, but is that a risk you're willing to take? Share all of your thoughts down below on all of this, and of course, I'll talk to you guys very soon with more updates coming after the live stream tomorrow. Thank you for clicking and watching. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications, and I'll see you all next time. So long and happy rail simming.